Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. I'm actually on the road today, so I'm not going to be in the studio, but I just had to comment on that utter humiliation that this woke attorney general in New York experienced yesterday. As I'm sure you all know by now, yesterday was Trump's first day in court for this sham civil suit against him for fraud, for supposedly overvaluing his properties. Now, you may be wondering, who exactly is Trump committing fraud against? Which one of his damaged victims is suing him? Well, as it turns out, that would be a trick question because no one is suing him. No bank, no insurance company, no one. None of New York's banks or insurance companies, no actual business entity is suing Trump. And that's because every single one of these banks did their own due diligence in estimating the worth of Trump's properties. And so the irony here is that even if Trump overvalued his properties, even if he did that, he's still not liable precisely because of the due diligence clause. It's the bank's responsibility to do their own assessment. And they did. And to make matters even worse, Trump's loans have all been paid off. And his accounts are current. He's in perfectly good standing with these banks and these insurance companies. So who on earth is bringing the suit against him? Well, what do you know? It's the Democrat state of New York, or better, some wacko left-wing lunatic judge. The state is arbitrarily coming in and persecuting Trump on literally trumped-up charges. The state of New York, which I'm learning has really one of the most corrupt court systems in the nation, corrupt in terms of and being infested with woke left-wing lunacy. But the state of New York is accusing Trump of overvaluing his properties. They're in turn fining him hundreds of millions of dollars. They're in the process of basically breaking up the Trump organization, seizing control of his properties, including Trump Tower. And to make matters even more disgusting, they're penalizing his kids. His kids are being brought into all of this. Now, if this were to happen to Jack Ma, if the CCP were to do this to a Chinese billionaire, we would all see this as evidence of living under a totalitarian system. That's what you get for being in a communist system. Well, guess what? We're now living under a comparable system. We're living in a period of weaponized legalism where one judge in this nation, a single judge, a single ideologically infested judge can exploit his authority and claim autonomously and ridiculously that a private citizen who's in good standing with banks and insurance companies actually defrauded those banks and insurance companies despite the banks and insurance companies' better judgment. And my, did yesterday prove they had better judgment. I don't know if you caught this, but what Trump's team pushed all day ad nauseum yesterday was that this judge, as I understand, this judge erroneously valued Mar-a-Lago as a residential property rather than as a commercial property. In other words, the judge used a residential real estate tax appraisal value of Mar-a-Lago, the value that local governments would put on the land to determine its taxes. The judge confused that for its commercial market value. This is why we have Scott Shield, the real estate expert, come on the program from time to time, because he'll point out to you that whenever you go to buy, say, a real estate property that's a private residence, so getting a home loan, for example, the bank will only loan you the amount of what the property is worth based on local government appraisal. However, if you're looking to buy a commercial real estate property, I think that's a property that has to have 4 or more residences on it, like apartment-like units, whatever it is. The bank loans are completely different. The bank loans are now based on the amount that reflects the amount of money that you can actually make from the rental payments. So they're two fundamentally different forms of valuation. If it's commercial property, banks and insurance companies, they don't estimate the value based on local government tax appraisals. They estimate the value based on the income the property can generate. So the two ways of assessing a property's value are totally different. And this idiot judge applied a residential valuation for a commercial real estate property. It's beyond absurd. Now, Apparently, this judge does seem to have some semblance of good sense about him. At the end of the day, Trump reported that the judge conceded that the statute of limitations are in effect on transactions that closed prior to 2014, which means, according to Trump, that basically 80% of this case just got thrown out yesterday. And we appear to have gotten some indirect corroboration on that with the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, because she reportedly left the courtroom without granting any interviews. She appeared to be rather humiliated by the fact that she just lost 80% of her case against Trump on day one because she could not figure out what the statute of limitations was. But I've got to be honest with you. When I saw that ABC Washington Post poll that came out the weekend before last that showed that Trump was beating Biden by 10, the first question I had, a number of people had it, so what's the new indictment going to be this week? I mean, think about it. Trump has been out of office now for, nearly 3 years. These freaks didn't do a thing during that time. They sat and waited to see if he would run again. I mean, it's being reported that Sam Bankman-Fried offered Trump up to $3 billion to stay out of the race. Did you see that? I mean, the powers that be were sitting on this, waiting to see if Trump would actually be so brazen as to try to come back. And the moment he entered the race, their plan of weaponizing the legal system against him kicked in. And so this judge in New York is obviously part of that, along with Attorney General Letitia James. We are living in an age of weaponized legalism. This is, at least at statewide levels, a banana republic where the political class arbitrarily exploits its power to punish its political enemies. The question now remains, how long is the Supreme Court going to allow this insanity to continue? That remains to be seen. But until then, you can be sure the Democrats will continue to get more and more desperate, all as Trump's poll numbers continue to soar. God bless.